All right, good evening from the municipality of South Dundas for Wednesday, June the 11th, 2025. This is a council meeting with its team and staff, members, guests, and online viewers. Welcome. We'll call the meeting to order. I have a motion. Let it resolve that the June 11th, 2025 council meeting in the municipality of South Dundas now be opened at 6 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. On that note, I will note that Councillor Vino is traveling tonight and will not be joining us. He sends his regrets. Moving to item number 3, confirmation of agenda. Any additions, deletions, or amendments? Clerk LeBrun. I'll do the addition while we get that mic figured out. So we'd like to add under delegations a short presentation on the Seniors Month. So we'll add that to delegations. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to pull 10A and 10B from consent, please.
Okay. To discussion items, 10A and 10B. Any other additions, amendments? Seeing none, I have a motion. Let it resolve that the municipality of South Dundas approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, I have adoption of the minutes. I have a motion. First of all, before the motion, are there any errors or omissions of the meeting minutes of May 28th? Seeing none, I have a motion. Let it resolve that the meeting minutes of the following meeting be adopted as presented. The May 28th regular and committee of the whole council meeting. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move to delegations. We'll now go to Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and to council and our guests this evening. June is Seniors Month in Ontario, and it's a time where we can acknowledge and honor the amazing seniors who enrich our lives and community every single day. This year's theme is Fit, Active, Healthy Seniors. It reminds us that aging is not about slowing down, but it's about staying engaged, vibrant, and connected. Here in South Dundas, we are very fortunate to have seniors who embody the spirit of active living. They participate in recreation programs, volunteer countless hours, and continue to build the community we can all call home. Today, we are especially proud to recognize our 2025 Ontario Senior of the Year recipient, Arla Castleman-Vino. Arla exemplifies what it means to be engaged in community, be a member whose impact touches every corner of our municipality. Arla's volunteer work spans the full spectrum of community life. She tends to the Iroquois United Church Cemetery with reverence and care. Through the community food share and Meals on Wheels, she helps ensure that no neighbor goes hungry, delivering not just food, but friendship to those who need it most. Walking through our community, you'll see Arla's handiwork everywhere. From the beautiful flower beds she installs and maintains that brighten our streets, to the clean roadsides she keeps pristine through Adopt a Road program. She's helped preserve our local history through her work with the Historical Society of South Dundas, and has even rolled up her sleeve to paint some pop-up shops and pick up litter wherever she can. Arla's dedication earned her the South Dundas Awards of Excellence Community Builder Award in 2023, and now this provincial recognition. She represents the best of what our seniors contribute: inspiration, leadership, and positive action that makes our community better for everyone. In Arla, we see that true citizenship isn't about grand gestures, but it's about consistent, caring action that builds the community one volunteer at a time. So to all of our seniors, thank you for your wisdom, your energy, and your unwavering commitment to making South Dundas a wonderful place to live. You show us every day that staying fit, active, and healthy isn't just about physical wellness, but it's about staying connected to your community and continuing to make a difference. So with that, I'd like to invite Arla up to receive her certificate from the province for Senior of the Year.
Got some family members here, would like to come forward as well.
I'd like to say a couple words. You did a great job of describing her, but there's a couple things you left out. Arlo's the ever-ready bunny. Gym 4 times a week, pickleball, golf twice a week, cares for and walks 2 dogs that aren't even ours. Regularly checks on and assists 2 seniors older than us. Picks up garbage along highways that got that, cares community gardens, volunteers food share, Iroquois Point Cemetery, Historical Society, Meals on Wheels, does 95% of the housework around our place. Does 100% of the house gardens and only cut the lawn. Helps friends organize and declutter their house. And she keeps me alive. She's a great nurse.
So just to wrap up, on behalf of the municipality of South Dundas, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to Arla, Councilman Vino, for being honored with the 2025 Senior of the Year Award. Her unwavering dedication enhances the beauty and spirit of our community, particularly through all of her efforts. So thank you to Arlo and congratulations. Okay, moving on to number 7, action requests. A, TS 2025-07, tender, TS 2504, supply of granular. Director Hyman.
Thank you, Mayor Broad and Council. So in front of you, you'll find the results from the most recent tender, which was issued, which helps fulfill the requirements of the municipality's 2025 gravel roads maintenance program and the stone dust for the 2025/2026 winter maintenance program. The following tender was published through bids and tenders, advertised in the local newspaper, as well as being on our local municipal website. 2 bids were received from Cornwall Gravel and GIP Paving, Inc. Some notables, $80,000 this year was budgeted through our, for the program, which allocated towards gravel roads program, which includes the rental of the grader and water truck. So the net cost for this year's program will be $64,729 or $92.63, which is under the budgeted amount. And our winter maintenance program, unfortunately, is not so well. $210,000 was budgeted. However, we needed to order more stone dust, and a result of that, the increased stone dust meant increased costs for salt to do our winter mix. So if I was to mention the comparisons from 2024 to this year coming up, 2,400 ton was ordered last year to do the winter mix. This year we ordered 4,000 ton of stone dust. So just a few notables. The costs were relatively the same year over year from 24 to 2025. I can answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Well, thank you, Director Hyman. Obviously, it's consumable. It's hard to know what we're going to need year on year. Any questions at this point? Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. So just looking at the costs, Director, I'm sorry, through you, Mayor.
That's
Apologize. To Director Hyman, just looking at the price of the maintenance stone, the stone dust, could we, and for the next budget season, perhaps you could come back to us with a report about the comparison between the stone dust and just going straight salt? Just something for us to consider because it is getting expensive to do stone dust. So just wondering if that's something we could maybe just direct staff to do for the next budget season?
Yeah, I think from a point of level of service, right? And obviously what's the cost impact, but then what's the result impact too, right? Because then we could choose based on, and residents will understand the difference between the 2 types of applications that we do use, right? Very good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion. Let it be resolved that the Council of Municipality of South Dundas award tender TS 2504 for the supply of granular to Cornwall Gravel Company Limited, the amount of $15.16 per ton plus HST for maintenance stone and $17.64 per ton plus HST for stone dust. And that the clerk and director of transportation be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to the contract. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. 7B, FS 2025-07, proposed level of service and 10-year plan. Tyler Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Broad. Good evening, Council. So you've been provided with the proposed levels of service and 10-year plan, provided in accordance with Ontario Regulation 588-17. This regulation requires municipalities to provide proposed levels of service, a life cycle strategy detailing asset life cycle events, a financial strategy identifying projected funding over the next decade, and a 10-year plan outlining expected costs in each year. So the level of service section of this document provides both community and technical levels of service for each asset category. This includes options that were previously reviewed, along with each option's associated risk and financial impacts. Based on percentage targets discussed during the May 28th Committee of the Whole meeting, we project annual reserve contributions will gradually increase each year to reach approximately 5.1 million in 2035. Using these projected contributions combined with existing reserve balances, we can determine the municipality's existing or expected funding available for capital projects over the next 10 years. So this plan includes funding from both the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund and Canada Community Building Fund, as well as resources that will become available through the elimination of existing long-term debt obligations. The plan outlines capital project costs that the municipality anticipates undertaking, determined by asset condition assessments, risk ratings, and projected funding available. All values in this plan are presented in 2025 dollars. Moving forward, Ontario Regulation 588-17 requires annual reviews of asset management progress. This will give the municipality the opportunity to review updated capital needs and reevaluate proposed levels of service and funding targets. If you have any questions or comments or questions, I can answer them now.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Comments, questions at this point? Councillor Ward?
I just wanted to say thank you, Mayor. So this has come back to us quite a few times, so I appreciate you listening to our comments and putting them in. And I think this is going to be very helpful moving forward when we apply for grants and whatnot. So I love the layout. I also think it's really well done. So thank you, Mr. Nelson. You did a great job, and I just wanted to make that comment.
Very good. Yeah, no, certainly comments for myself. Stewards of the community infrastructure, it's our responsibility that road, bridges, facilities are maintained, and we need to invest. Having the asset management plan, or the AMP, as you call it, it's a good step forward for sure, and I think we're going to definitely use that when we meet with ministers, when we're doing delegations. We'll have our plan with us, and aligning with the Ontario regulations. Just means we're committed to good governance, and I think that's the key to what we'll be able to show going forward. What dollar amount we actually fund year on year will be budgetary items, discussions, and hopefully with growth, we'll be able to keep moving forward on that. But thank you, Mr. Nelson, and thanks for taking the feedback and making those adjustments in the plan. Any other comments? Very good. I have a motion. Let it resolve that the Council of Municipality of South Dundas approves the attached proposed level of service and 10-year capital plan in accordance with the Ontario Regulation 588-17 as prepared by Tyler Nelson, Asset Management Coordinator. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And 7C, CAO 2025-05, surplus land, CO DeHaan.
Thank you, and good evening, Council. So through you, Mr. Mayor, this is just a follow-up on our last meeting when we discussed some properties that were still a little bit on the outstanding side of things for potentially declaring them surplus. So this is the action request that's going to formally confirm them as surplus so that we could work through the disposal process. consistent with our policy. One of the questions that was raised was about Thunder Road and do we have to split that 50-50? The answer is no, we don't have to. There's no law that requires us. It is identified in our policy, but there's a good rationale as to why that policy, like that requirement wouldn't necessarily apply in this circumstance due to the fact we're trying to enlarge an orphaned piece of land to make it a little more of a viable lot. In the report, there's also an update on some of the properties that had previously been declared surplus and where they are right now. And I can say, staff are continuing to work through those sales or the disposal of those properties, and they will all come to council before they're finally disposed. So the story's not finished with them, but from this point forward, as we start talking about these ones we've declared surplus, we'll be kind of finalizing moving forward with them as well. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Very good. Questions, comments for CO Don? Very good. I have a motion. Let it resolve that the Council of South Dundas declare the following municipal properties as identified in Schedule A as surplus, as they are no longer required for municipal purposes. Moved by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Moving to 8 bylaws. A, 2025-47 CIP agreement. We actually have B and C, and we have 3 different motions. Tia Fraser Dupuis, if we could just talk all 3, and then I can read each 3 motions if you want, instead of recapping each time the story.
Perfect, thank you. So this is just a follow-up from the last meeting to formalize the CIP agreements with Seaway Speech in the amount of $4,450 for the facade and signage grants. Williamsburg Pump Supply and Service for $1,916.48 for the facade grant, and ATEL Air for the $1,000 signage grant.
Very good. Any questions or comments on these 3? I know we discussed them at our last meeting, so very good. So 3 motions. Let it be resolved that bylaw 2025-47, being a bylaw to enter in a community improvement plan agreement with Seaway Speech, be read second and third time. To open council, municipality, the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the SIP agreement with Seaway Speech. That was a tongue twister. Councillor Ward, Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, all in favor, carried. Same for 2025-48 with Williamsburg Pump and Supply. Moved by Councillor Ward, Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconder, all in favor, carried. And third motion under bylaw 2025-49 with ATEL Air and Heating. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino, all in favor, carried. Councillor Smith. I was looking over there, but I can't call her name. Okay, very good. Under boards and committees, South Branch Community Fund. You had a meeting, Councillor Ward?
Yes, thank you. We did award, well, we were recommending, I believe it's in the consent, and I think Councillor Smith may have pulled that, Mayor, so I don't know if we want to talk about that now, or you want to talk about it during discussion?
Yeah, we can do both at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, so I can go through what we,
Sure,
what we're
yeah. And then,
recommending?
then the discussion item Councillor Smith wanted to have, we'll just have it at this time,
Yeah,
since we're on the
perfect.
topic.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me just get there. Okay, so we met on Tuesday, May 27th, and we reviewed, there were 2 applications that we got for the funding. So reminder that there is a limited intake area because it is based on a geographic region. So we received one from the Historical Society as well as the Matilda Rec Committee. So the committee felt that the Historical Society one would be better partnered with Matilda Rec. So I believe the deputy clerk is going to reach out to the parties and see if they could host the events together, because both Matilda Rec and the Historical Society are going to hold an event, but it just makes sense that they hold it together and then they can kind of share the funding that way. So we ended up awarding $3,000 to Matilda Memorial, or I shouldn't say that. We have not awarded anything. I apologize. We're recommending that Matilda Rec be recipient of the $3,000 for tables and chairs for their new building, which I think all of council now has had the opportunity to visit. And then they need an additional $11,000. They're epoxying the floor, and then another $3,000 for the community events that are free that they host throughout the year, and that includes that event that the Historical Society could be a part of. So.
Yeah, we typically see those community events requests come to budget time under council
Correct.
donations, but if we have the money, then we offset it through this fund, right? So
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So those are the projects that we're looking to council to approve, essentially.
Cool. Right on. Questions, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, so on this one, the question that I had was, did we already in this year's budget approve through the grants and donations money for like that $3,000 ask for like events? Did we already approve anything? That was.
Yeah,
that was
so
the
no,
question
we denied them knowing that they could go to the South Branch Recreation Fund and get the funding there. But if that didn't work out, then they could come back like we did the previous year.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not funded today, and we're gonna fund it through the recommendation of the South Branch Committee.
Okay. And the other thing that I had was, so if we approve all of that money out of that, that's going to take that reserve to essentially zero.
Yes, we had, in the report, it talks about we overspent the year
Yes.
before, so that gets us back to even.
Yeah,
on
so
the
it's not going to
intake.
be in a negative, but is
zero.
is everybody comfortable with it being?
Yeah,
at
that's the
zero?
intent. The intent of that fund
intent
is to go to zero every year.
The intent is to go
Yeah.
to zero, so technically we should not be holding a balance in that.
Correct,
fund.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the current balance is just the money we'll receive for this year, and then we'll
Okay.
give it out during the year.
I think historically, through you, Mayor, if I may, it is on.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh. Sorry. Historically, there was a balance there, Councillor Smith, and that was just because there was a delay in actual work, and that's actually what led to the over expenditure. So that's why. But yeah, historically, we've spent it in the year that we receive it. I think it's 30,000. So next year in 2026, the committee will have $30,000
Okay.
to distribute, whereas this year it was only the 17.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I guess in one way it worked out well because they expedited some of their work, getting some money ahead of time, so that's good. Anything else, Councillor Smith? No, that's good. Okay, very good, thank you for that. RSL board meeting, so I had a RSL board meeting last week, and I do have the report. Sorry, pull that up here. Here we go. So operational side, lots of distribution requests coming through with Prescott Long-Term Care, Iroquois High School, Prescott, the Iroquois Merkley Oaks, and the West Park projects. We're working on an ERP upgrade. We worked on our strategic plan and passed some of the plans that we're working on. We're working on our cost of service application. So every 5 years, electrical distribution company goes through a cost of service review, which then gives us the right to charge what we do. So we're starting into that, and that's a whole 1-year process. We looked at some of our risks when it comes to inventory and transformers. And at the board side, one of our owners is Fortis, and Ji Han has been the board of director member for the last 11 years, and he's retiring from Fortis. So there'll be a new person from Fortis join the board, and the CEO will get the request for that person. She's from Cornwall, so they've named it. So we'll see that on our next agenda, the name and the information of who that new board member is on that one. So, and we're going to be hosting our annual AGM in Westport this September, and then South Dundas will host the AGM next year. So it's a 5-year rotation kind of throughout the communities. So we'll be up next year. So that was Rito St. Lawrence Holdings update. ACTEV meeting last week. So we went through all the updates of all the projects that we're undertaking, and then some of the activities within the group. So one of the things we're now working on to get them made and posted, all our new bike signs. So over the last year, we've done a lot of work on bike signage requests, did auditing in the area. We've reached out to the great waterway cycling group and the parks and all that group. So those we had a request to at the county level, but we're going to execute our signage, and then those other things hopefully will come to fruition down the road. So that's good. That's happening. Certainly, we're starting to gear up for our awards of excellence. So that'll be posted sometime, not in the near distant future, for nominations for all our awards. And the gala is Friday, October 24th at Matilda Hall. So we're looking forward to that, and we're working on those activities. Briefly talked about some of the action plan items, such as doctor recruitment, information signs about the municipality, and a few other items through that committee. So we had a good meeting, and we're meeting again in August. We are next meeting for that group. And then I did have a brief update, Border Mayor Alliance. We did have a meeting today. Our guest speaker was Amy Butcher from Public Affairs of Industry Canada. So had some good piece of information, some stats, and we received their strategic plan, which is really good. What we were compiling with the Border Mayor Alliance over the last few meetings. Last meeting was the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and their kind of strat plan. So these are items that we can work with through our MPP, right? So we got their action items, 3 or 4 items, and those are good ways to be able to communicate what action items we're working on. Otherwise, on the border, we did have an event at FCM in Ottawa where we had some meetings, and we got lots of advocacy, and word in the street is trade negotiations continue to go well. So we're hoping, if you follow the news a little bit, hopefully we'll hear some good things here very shortly. Any other boards or committee meetings? Okay, seeing none. Under consent agenda, so there'll be 3, I guess, here. C, resolution, the town of Blue Mountains, reduce provincial tax rate. D, resolution, city of Kingston, B5. And E, resolution, Stouffville provincial funding shortfall of human and health program services. So I have a motion to resolve that the items listed under consent agenda be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. Yes, Clerk LeBrun?
There's just procedurally, because we moved the
Okay.
South Branch to discussion.
We can pass that one now?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if we could do the consent, if we can do the consent resolution, but I think we'll also need a resolution for the South Branch, just because we moved it to discussion.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I can just kind of whip one up really quick, or if there's one on there, I'm not.
Yep, I can, there's a blank one here. I can, okay, so we'll do, so that's the resolution for the other consent items. So moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And could I have a motion to, a resolution to adopt consent agenda 10B, the KRA South Branch Community Fund? Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Very good. Keep my paperwork straight. Okay, and then on that note, Clerk LeBrun, I made myself a note under 10E, the resolution of the funding shortfall of human resources. Could you forward that to SDG counties and the city of Cornwall? Because those are actually items that I've been discussing with them, and I checked their agendas, and I didn't notice it in their consent agenda. So if you could pass that along, and then I can bring it up at those meetings.
Happy to.
That'd be good. Thank you very much. Okay. Under discussion items, we can go 11A, KRA sewer use bylaw. CO DeHaan.
It's okay. That's no problem. So I guess start off to thank Mr. Villeneuve and our finance team who have helped along this discussion. So just what I wanted to do with council tonight, or what I should say we wanted to do with council tonight, is really we've had a draft sewer use bylaw that's been ready for council's consumption for a little bit. But before we wanted to bring that entire draft bylaw, it's a relatively complex bylaw, and there's some kind of high-level elements that what we preferred to do is just go through those with council first, get some direction on it, because depending on which way council wants to go on a couple of the things, we might be able to eliminate many sections, items, and then it's not an item we have to kind of discuss whenever the draft bylaw comes to council in the near future. So that's the purpose of all of this evening. So I've kind of distilled things down into a number of slides just to help us get through some of the direction we'd really appreciate council's view on. So just to set it up for council, what is a sewer use bylaw? What it is it's setting the standards of what can be discharged from private property into public sanitary sewers and storm sewers. Why is that important to have? It's, of course, there to ensure that the end-of-pipe treatment facility, so stormwater ponds, or the St. Lawrence River, if that's your ultimate receiving stream for stormwater, are protected because those things can handle certain types of waste coming into them, but you can really challenge the environment, or you can challenge the operation of your system if you're overloading it with types of sewage or stormwater that doesn't comply with what it can operate within. So why are we considering it now? It's important for us at a staff level, certainly, to be able to provide developers what standards they have to be held to. And it allows us to have some enforcement teeth if we find issues of non-compliance. There is also an element that it is considered a best practice to have this kind of bylaw because it encourages responsible behavior within the community. So, as I mentioned, we do have a draft bylaw created, and really what we want to do is we'll provide that entire document next time we meet, depending on the type of feedback we get here, and we'll kind of work through it in a little more detail at that point. So questions that staff were wondering with council is, do we want to include both stormwater and sanitary sewer parameters within the bylaw? So the draft bylaw that we have at a staff level does include both of those elements. But if just doing I'm going to call it an environmental scan of other sewer use bylaws across Ontario, there's some that have it, some that just focus on sanitary sewer. The stormwater element of the bylaw does add some complexity to it, to be perfectly honest, but that's not a bad thing because it does create an opportunity for enforcement and compliance for certain element or issues we may have from a storm sewer perspective. Some of the storm, and I'll give an example, some storm runoff parameters are very much dictated through the Conservation Authority as a new large subdivision, as an example, comes online and what they have to design to as it gets to a storm sewer. But there are a lot of things that exist today. And a perfect example we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about and why we want to bring this up is the idea of like roof water or roof leaders that are connected into the sanitary sewer. It's a very common issue that we have within our communities, and it's not, it was kind of an easy way to deal with it back in the day, and that's fine and fair, but we obviously, as we continue to progress and understand what is a best practice and what makes sense, that's the kind of thing that communities are now eliminating or removing from their sanitary sewer systems. So it does create that ability to kind of move forward with how we're treating sanitary sewer and the best practices we put out to the world. So I guess to that end, is there does council have any strong feeling one way or another with respect to if we just want to focus on sanitary sewer in this bylaw, or they're comfortable kind of seeing it with sanitary and storm?
Councillor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. So I would like to see storm included. I think I don't know what our storm sewer system is like, but I would imagine it probably could use tender love and care, and if we're adding more volume to it, I'd prefer to have it included and the parameters laid out in this bylaw. But I'm also not objective to having one for storm sewer, one for sanitary sewer, if that's council's preference or staff's preference. But I do think we need to have something for both pieces of infrastructure. That's my opinion.
Anybody else at this point? Councillor Ward?
Sorry, just,
Yeah.
I don't think that maybe we should include ditches, though. I think just piped infrastructure. Sorry, I guess I should clarify, because I do think you asked that question in the report, so.
Yeah, I guess it's through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I didn't necessarily ask it, like the way the bylaw is currently defined, it includes ditches as part of the storm sewer network, so there would be enforcement opportunity. As an example, the bylaw might say you cannot block a sewer. That would, in an instance, include a ditch. So if someone really was, whether by being obstinate or just by accident blocking up a ditch that's functioning as a storm sewer, we have that ability through the bylaw to be able to go in and deal with it. There's also like the Drainage Act, which we can rely on as well. But I think from a staff perspective, having some clear definition and ability to do that in a bylaw is desirable, if I'm being quite honest.
Well, certainly, and it makes it much clearer when we get a question, right, from a resident, if there's an issue or just a question, and, we could go to the bylaw, go to the information, say, hey, these are the rules we're following, at the time or at the moment, right? So I think that's beneficial to have it documented.
Oh, sorry. That's fine with me then, Mayor. If that's the objective of that, then that's fine.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to question the viability of the ditches, because if you go through a lot of our villages, village streets, a lot of the ditches are overgrown. A lot of ditches have silt built up that half the culvert is now not functioning properly. So I guess I'm just a little bit concerned that if we're going to impose such a bylaw, should we not have the onus of ensuring that these ditches are fully functional before we're imposing the bylaw, which is going to mean Jeff Hyman's group is going to have to go and do a lot of ditch cleaning throughout our village streets. So that's where I'm a little bit hesitant on the ditches. I think the storm sewers, yes. Sanitary as well, yes. But I thought we had went through a couple terms ago. Did we not go through kind of a review of our sanitary sewer to try to determine how many connections or drain connections were connected to the sanitary sewer?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad. There was discussion, but nothing was passed on what was to, like, it actually just kind of like in 2022, it just kind of just dropped at that stage and nothing ever got progressed after that.
So I guess the question would be, what would be the approach with existing residents that has a legacy and a long time of discharging to, let's say, a storm's sanitary sewer now? I mean, are we going to be expected to go and knock on their door and ask them to disconnect and reroute? And so what's the intent here? I understand moving forward on the new developments, but just on the existing residents.
If I may, I do kind of talk specifically to that issue a couple slides down. I know it's kind of contained in the report, but I'll hit it specifically on the slide because I think we at the staff level recognize that that's a pretty sensitive topic that we have to tread carefully on for sure.
Yeah, why don't we continue along and then we can loop back if we have.
And if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, hearing the concerns about the ditches, if I can make a recommendation, perhaps we work through the draft bylaw, still included in the context of the storm sewer system, and then that's another, kind of as we weigh the draft bylaw, we can kind of consider how it fits in the context of the entire bylaw. Okay, so question number 2 is just looking if council has anything on their mind that they would like to see included in the bylaw that's a change from current practice. So the easy example that is in the draft bylaw right now, which staff are suggesting we do not include, is the acceptance of septage, so things from the honey wagon. And the reason being is that, it does create some operational challenges at the wastewater treatment facility. We have private industry that can provide that service to our residents, so it's not like a service that residents really have to, from what I understand, don't have to travel far to to be able to get that service provided. So, from staff's perspective, we just don't even want to contemplate it in the bylaw. It's not going to be included. The one area where we would certainly appreciate council's thoughts on is the bylaw right now includes an element of adding, a developer could come in and request, because they can't meet the parameters, entering into what's called an extra strength discharge agreement with the municipality. So they're not meeting the parameters, but we're able to quantify how far out of the parameters they are, and actually through cost recovery, be able to recover that extra burden on our facility to be able to treat that wastewater coming out of their plant. So you may see this with a facility that is processing food and has a kind of a high demand on that sewage coming off out of the plant. So we think that there's value in that, but if that's something that council doesn't see ever wanting to entertain, and simply requiring businesses to meet the parameters that are identified in the schedule, we don't have to include that at all in the bylaw. So that's another question maybe for council, and if there's any other things that we should be thinking about.
Councillor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm actually, I've given this some thought, though. So not necessarily, I'm not in favor of the septage, but the extra strength discharge agreement, I think we should entertain that thought as council, because I don't want to see industry not be able to come to South Dundas in our urban areas and not be able to discharge, and then we'll have, they'll have to set up their own wastewater treatment, whatever that may be. I don't know what the current parameters are, so I think, through you, Mayor, to Director Villeneuve, I would expect in the bylaw, like, maybe there's a hard line where you can say, like, we cannot absolutely not accept this. And if you're doing that, then you need to have your own treatment system. But I do think, we could maybe have a little bit of flexibility and have that surcharge, and then whatever it costs you to treat that when it comes to the wastewater, kind of figure that out on a high level.
Yeah, I think some of the things I continue to talk about is one of the greatest benefits we have today is water and wastewater capacity, right? And then what that use could be used for. So I think knowing what our limits are, and then understanding what we're trying to attract can help us when we're out there with ministers, with those businesses, understanding that. So I think having the parameters in the bylaw would be great, because we could always choose to accept it or not accept it. Yeah. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I agree with that one. The, having that in the bylaw, it's maybe not likely that we're gonna get a large processor but who knows, it should at least be noted in there somehow. I did have a question on the septage one. What would be the reason for not accepting it? Would there not be an opportunity there maybe to just add a little bit of income? Like, what's the reasoning behind that?
Through you, Mayor Broad. So at one time, we were gonna take on the septage, but there's a lot of turnover. Whenever you can't just bring it all right back into the facility, because you'll get turnover in your SBR plant. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is there's just not enough, there's not enough people in this area that take in septage when they can just go up to the company GFL just down the road and they take septage. So it just, like, and plus you got people on your yards and they're coming and going as they please. At the time, it just wasn't feasible. Like, it didn't make any sense to take it in. It's not a moneymaker, is basically it. It's more of a burden than anything, to be honest.
Very good. Good.
Thank you. So next one was with respect to the requirement for sanitary backflow preventers, and then the asterisk is whenever it's not mandatory under the Ontario Building Code. So there's two kind of elements where we could, require backflow preventers. One is whenever there's an existing renovation that's occurring in a facility that's occurring below grade. And another element is when it's there's a reason why the CBO may recommend a backflow preventer. I'll be honest with you, like, the CBO and myself had talked about this slide and this element. We couldn't really come up with great examples of when that might be, but it's also one of those things, if you don't have it, that's the day you need it, is when you don't have it. So, and certainly, again, welcome council's thoughts on this aspect of the bylaw.
A question, do backflow preventers go like close to the house, close to the structure, like immediately on discharge, or in between, or it could be anywhere?
Through you, Mayor Broad, you could basically go anywhere on the lateral, but I've seen them right at the curb, like right at the property line, and as far as up to the
house,
foundation. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've had over the years backflows into houses, right? And it's super frustrating for those residents. Previous residents had them installed. But anyways, Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. So the only thing I would add in here is maybe if we have areas that are prone to surcharge, that that have had a history of that if any, I know it's Ontario Building Code now if you're doing a reconnection or anything like that, but maybe we should just mind that if the CBO could just get that information from the director and kind of highlight those properties. And the other, may I ask a follow-up question? Yeah. When we do have a surcharge, Director Villeneuve, obviously the municipality goes through insurance just like the property owner would. When we go through insurance, is it a requirement for them to add that backflow preventer back in, or do they just get reimbursed for the damage done in the basement?
So through you, Mayor Broad, most of the time, the surcharges that we're getting are caused. It's not caused by high flows or anything like that. It's more caused by grease buildup that people are discharging into the system. So that we call them our troubled areas in town, and just behind the plazas and stuff like this is these called troubled areas. So we try to be proactive. We do quarterly manhole checks so this doesn't happen. So to answer your question, like, if somebody has a surcharge, it doesn't mean they're going to get another surcharge in that area again. So, but there is incidents that there's one area in particular, they've had multiple backups, and I reached out to them and told them they need to put a backflow, and they never have. So, I mean, I have it recorded that, you know, that we've told them to put in, so I guess it's up to the resident whether they put it in or not. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so thank you. It does, and I think maybe that's something we should maybe look at in the bylaw. I just think if we're gonna constantly go through insurance, because I'm assuming the homeowner goes through insurance, you know, like, once is an accident, twice, okay, maybe, but 3 times, like, it's time to install that. So, anyways, that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think it's just best practice to do that. I remember it was probably 20 years ago, we had quite a storm that come through South Dundas that flooded a lot of basements and whatnot, and a number of people did install the sanitary backflow preventers afterwards to prevent that. But just on what you were just talking about, I mean, does municipality have any legal rights to enforce a homeowner to install it after a flood?
Through you, Mayor Broad, not that I'm aware of, I don't think we have any rights to
Okay,
tell
so
them.
it's-
You can just make recommendations. and-
Recommendations, and it's
Yes.
on record, and, yeah, no, okay.
Yeah, so I guess only in a new build or when the CBO
Or-
would sign
or
off.
renovation
Yeah, a
or something,
renovation, you
yeah.
could hold them accountable, but otherwise,
Yeah,
I guess.
I think we
yeah.
should be doing that anyways. I mean, it's just good practice. I mean, the cost of a backflow preventer is nothing, really, on the grand scheme of things, so,
Yeah, and sorry, through you, Mayor Broad, the incident I believe you're talking about, that 20-year storm, that was basically 20 years ago, right at this time, right now. And the plant capacity, it just went over there was nothing that anybody did wrong. It just that it was a 10-year storm that
oh, it was, I
happened.
think it was more than that. It was
Yeah.
like 100-year storm.
Yeah, 100
Yeah, it was a 100-year
It
storm.
went over the plant capacity
Yeah.
by near 7,000 cubes.
Yeah.
So there's, at the end of the day, there really wasn't much, I mean, unfortunately, there really wasn't much people could do at the time. And it just happened to be they were closest to the sewage plant.
Yeah, it's not like this helps.
Correct.
Because that's sorry, because that's what happens, right? When you have drainage that's entering, rainwater that's entering the sanitary sewer, it's backing up through the sanitary sewer through everybody's house. And I remember as a fireman going through some basements, and they had toilets in their basements, and basically it was doing this. You could not keep up to pumping out of the water because it was coming up through their toilets and everything. So to the point of trying to get as many residents off of the sanitary sewer from the rainwater is a benefit for everybody's sake, right?
And I believe that's what we're gonna be touching on.
Continuing.
Okay, so this is I would suggest probably the one that I could appreciate soliciting the most input and feedback on is the full disconnection of rainwater leaders, downspouts, private catch basins, interior sump pump connections that go into the sanitary sewer. So draft bylaw does contemplate this happening. What staff would consider a reasonable approach if council wanted to take this to implement this requirement is actually having a kind of a compliance date that's far enough out that gives people that opportunity to be able to mitigate and comply by that date. And I've even seen in some municipalities through conferences and whatnot that I've taken, a municipality can even have programs to help offset some of the costs of these things, like rain barrel programs or even those like providing that disconnection. If it's a simple leaf trough that's going into a hole in the ground, cut it off, put it away, fill that hole. So there's a bunch of things that we can do as a municipality to help the community. Again, it's a best practice, and certainly as an engineer, I do believe that this is an important thing for us to consider and include in our bylaw. But the flip side too is I appreciate that it creates a burden. So that's what the recommendation is for anything that's kind of a direct connection on the exterior. Interior, we could look at something where we are only triggering that change of that sump pump going into the sanitary sewer whenever building permits applied for or issued, or putting a further date out, because there is a little bit more of a burden on the homeowner, depending on how they have to route their water to be able to discharge the foundation drains out of the house. And the bylaw right now does contemplate an ability to grandfather existing foundation drains where there is no opportunity to correct how they discharge, and there's no other way but to discharge those foundation drains into the sanitary sewer. So there is some leniency in the bylaw too, and it's just at the discretion of staff depending on the circumstance. So this is what staff would recommend if council is in agreement, and we could look at different dates if council prefers that, or we could look at not including that whatsoever. So I'll leave that with council for their input.
Comments, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. I guess my concern with the downspouts is if we start enforcing that they have to remove, then we have to get into, do they have proper drainage around their house to be able to discharge the surface water to the front ditch, right? And I don't know if anybody's caught the news lately. I don't want to get deep into it, but I think it was in Embrun. They've been having some very issues with some basement flooding and whatnot. It's really not a funny situation, to be honest with you. And, you know, one of the things they were saying was because of poor drainage from one landowner to the other landowner. I'm just fearful that if we start telling existing landowners you got to remove that, and then their surface water is not getting to the ditch and it's getting to the neighbors, now we've created, I think, a bigger issue, not only for the landowners, but for us. So I'm just a little hesitant on that. I don't mind if it's tied to, again, building renovations, where it can be addressed at that time to properly discharge, make sure their grading is right, but to go in and ask somebody now to regrade their yard because we want to, you know, remove the downspout, I just don't know.
So
You know.
are you suggesting maybe on the downspout, the exterior one, you know, have the same line existing drains, no opportunity for correction to be grandfathered until such a time they could be
Yeah,
corrected?
that's what I think that's what I'm leaning towards. Like, I understand it, I understand the need for it, but I just think this may create a bigger problem, may potentially create a bigger issue than what we intend on it to be. If our sanitary sewer has enough capacity and we're not experiencing flooding, and there's the downstream system and the wastewater plant is receiving that discharge and it's not overflowing, then I think that's fine. If there's over time, we can start removing them, or landowners start removing them. I know at my house, I'm not even on a sanitary sewer or anything, but I actually removed mine just for the sake that I didn't want that drainage getting into my foundation if there's any blockage there. So I just removed it myself, but I knew the drainage worked. So I think we should just grandfather that one in. Not sure if that makes sense.
Councillor Ward?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I think one comment that I would have is that if an individual cannot disconnect all these items from the sanitary sewer, that we look at a backwater valve or some sort of mechanism to control that, because you know, if we're not going to disconnect them, we should at least protect them, or at least make them protect themselves. I know you only have a few problem areas, but that could change with development. So I think if we're looking in the long term, if you're going to keep connection, then it's your responsibility to maintain a backwater or a backflow valve, whatever one you want to put in. And it's not the municipality's, if you incur some damages, it's not the municipality's fault, I would say.
Manager Village?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad. The reason, like, just so you guys understand the severity of the I&I, it's infiltration in the pipe. Our normal flows at the plant would roughly be around like 2,500 cubic meters. If we end up getting a major storm, our plant capacity could go up to like 15,000 cubes, sometimes even like on a normal rain. So if we get heavy rain, we can even go over our plant capacity, then we got an overflow issue. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the capacity as we're growing here. The capacity of the plant will go lower and lower with the I&I. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the numbers of the I&I that we're getting in town here. It is an issue. Anytime, like even just a little rain, we'll see it go up to like 7,000 cubes from 25. So there is a lot. If I was just making a suggestion on it, I really think we should. I don't know if it's so much the residentials that are going into the ground as much. I really feel it's the big apartments, and that's where, because of flat roofs, and they're holding all that rain, and that's where it's going in. So I think we should try, as much as possible to have them go to the ditches.
Right.
I understand, Deputy Mayor's concern about, we might have floodings and stuff, but, I think we should at least, well, like a recommendation is,
Yeah, and I
think
was-
we should try to at least, on the flatter roofs, and have them at least try to go to ditches, and that's just a recommendation anyways.
And I was thinking right at that, the standard still is you change it, except when you can't change it. Not everybody's just grandfathered because of the way it was. That's kind of what I was thinking. You might think about writing it that way, that there's an opportunity to disconnect it. Let's make sure we get it done to that point. But Deputy Mayor, you wanted to?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rod. But through the capacity study that we are getting completed through EVB, should that not tell us any data? Because they're putting flow monitoring in, right? So that would measure the flow and give you what the actual demand is on that sewer versus it's just a peak design. I mean, because normally peak design, normally actual flow is about a third of what the peak design is. So I'm just wondering if we have flow monitors and through that program that would help us out a bit.
Through you, Mayor Bott, it definitely will help us out. My only concern is, like, we don't know what the storms are gonna be like ahead, right? And, as we're growing, we're taking capacity, like, if we could just say, like, well, I can just use Iroquois for an example, the capacity of all these new subdivisions that are going in, that takes up capacity, and I just, like, I just think it's a good idea to have it go to the ditches that, like through what Mayor Broad was saying, that if it's possible to go to ditches, and if it's not, then it's grandfathered that they don't.
No, understood, but again, just correct me. Are we putting flow monitors in the sewers? So if we're putting flow, yes?
Yes,
So if
sir.
we're putting flow monitors in the sewers, that's what it does. It gives you the data when there's a peak flow based on the rain event. So if there's a spike under a rain event in your sanitary sewer, it tells you that there's more infiltration entering that sewer than what normal infiltration rate would be through the gaskets and through the pipe system, right? So that's all I'm going, should, I think EVB can tell us that little bit of data. If there's like June 11th, we get a rainfall and there's a spike in the flow monitor, and that would be able to tell us if there's normal sewage versus an infiltration peak in that sewer.
Through your, I 100%, it's just not gonna tell us how bad the storm,
Well, you can look up that data. You can just, the weather, we have that data. It's this historic data you can just look up. Anyways, I don't mean it to the minute liter per second. I'm
Right.
just was wondering if there was a way just a high level to go, okay, High Street, for instance, all of a sudden during this, a rain event, we always see a peak. Well, that tells us just on the surface that there's probably a lot of infiltration from sump pumps and whatnot. That's just high level. That's all I was suggesting, but I don't want to get into that magnitude. Now we're talking engineering. Sorry, Ben.
No, and through you, Mayor Broad, like, there is other ways that we can address this too. There is relining on the sewer.
Yeah,
mains,
no.
and so there is, but all that costs money,
Understood.
obviously.
Understood, but I just want to go back to my original statement that I don't think we should be going through and just doing a flush of, if the residents can be offline, that's fine, but I don't think we should force that issue unless there's a renovation to the house and we grandfather that in slowly. I understand the need, I understand the impacts, but if it's manageable today, and let's say even 50% of the people can start rerouting their downspouts to the ditch, it's going to be a benefit. I just don't think we should be forcing them to do that. Again, it's not just about having a little bit of isolated flooding. I just think if we force a resident to do something and there is something major that happens to a neighbor, I think it will come back on us that, we've done something to them to cause damage somewhere else. I just want to be very, very careful with that.
Sounds good.
Councilor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. So I think both really good points, and I think my opinion is you're right. We would have flow monitoring we would have that peak information, but then in the future, we would be oversizing our sanitary main to accommodate surface water flow, which then could lead to plant upgrades, which we might not necessarily need. So I just think, I did have that question about the relining, and, if we did a relining project, if that would be the opportunity to kind of eliminate some of those connections. Maybe something to think about. I don't know what the timeline is for relining on sanitary sewer right now. But one of the things I think too that maybe we could do, Mayor, is just a suggestion to kind of appease everyone, is that bylaw is fluid. It can come back to council at any time. So perhaps if we're seeing the sewer plant, if all of a sudden we start getting 100-year storms and the sewage plant is having overflows or it's having some sort of issue, then we really need to revisit. And at that point, I think the residents could probably appreciate that we don't want to have overflows at the sewage treatment plant. And we don't want to spend a whole lot of money upgrading a plant that we might not necessarily need to. So I think maybe we can just keep that information, and maybe if Director Villeneuve could, at whatever point that happens, if you think there's a threshold where we're meeting it, maybe we're meeting a specific threshold more than 2 times a year or 3 times a year, then we could bring it back to council and revisit that. I just think it protects everyone involved that way.
Very good. Councilor Smith?
Yeah, I was just gonna go back to what the deputy mayor said a couple minutes ago. If you start, if 5 houses in a row have to start discharging their eaves troughs and their sump pumps outside, and the person at the top of the hill is fine, but the person at the bottom of the hill all of a sudden now has a flood in their backyard that never used to be there before, and it goes into their basement somehow. Now all of a sudden, because of our new bylaw, are we going to be on the hook for some repairs at somebody's house? So
Yeah.
that doesn't.
Yeah, no, that's why I like the idea, of that last line about when there's no opportunity to do it correctly, let's not force that, but when there's opportunity, then we should try and take that opportunity, so. Yeah, okay, yep.
Maybe a little bit easier topic is carburetors. There is an opportunity. So there are in this bylaw, and I actually kind of did a little bit of research across Ontario. There are municipalities that do prohibit the installation of food waste grinders. Just based on my discussions with our CBO, not something that is very common in South Dundas, or that he had indicated he's seen maybe 3 in his time here. So not a big thing, but it is something that can create some maintenance issues in the sanitary sewer main. So that's often the reason why it is prohibited. We can prohibit it, we cannot prohibit, or we can just remain silent on it. It's kind of up to council if they feel strongly one way or another.
Yeah, when I was reading the slide the first time, I'm like, that used to be a thing, right? It would be a cool thing. You went to somebody's house that had that, but I'm like, I don't know anybody that has these anymore. So prohibiting it may be just easy, and then because then for the few that there are, it won't matter. But anybody new, then they would know, hey, let's not go into that. But yeah, just add it. Yep, perfect.
So this one, coming back to what we just talked about with the rain leaders and whatnot, this one I think is as well as worth a little bit more of a discussion. Is they're requiring the installation of grease interceptors. So like Director Villeneuve had said, this is something that they actually, we can quantify in terms of what it means for us with businesses that don't have properly operating or installed grease interceptors. So the bylaw would include a requirement to have these in auto repair facilities, restaurants, food preparation, processing locations. So again, I'm not a CBO. My understanding is new builds. This is something that's required, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But we're kind of talking about those historic facilities that may not have it. So, this is an element of how do we want to treat existing facilities that don't have those right now? Again, from staff's recommendation is give those that aren't in compliance enough time to be able to plan, budget, and put those in. It is a best practice. It is something that Dennis and his staff have to deal with on a regular basis and have to be proactive on to make sure that the system operates the way it should. So I guess it demonstrates the need why these things are important. Well-functioning grease traps are important. So I'll leave that with council for their input.
Councilor Smith?
Yeah, so whenever I saw this one, I asked somebody in the food service industry who I'm pretty close to, that's my wife, and her opinion, and she said that absolutely any food service location in our area that does not have one should have one. This should be mandatory. So, and it makes sense. Yeah.
Councillor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. So we talked about where surcharge is happening because of this exact issue. So we could be impacting many others because some people aren't following what needs to happen. I think that I'm fine with the deadline. I think that gives them ample time to complete the work. One of the questions I did have is some commercial units can be quite expensive. So I'm not sure if we want to maybe look at some sort of assistance through the sewer, like maybe we could, do some sort of loan and they could pay it back. I just don't want people to be financially strapped for the bigger commercial units because sometimes they can be upwards of, 70, 80,000 if they're big enough. So just a thought, I just don't want to financially strap anyone all at once there, but they do have ample time to budget. So that was just a one thought I had, and I'm not sure if it's even possible, but that's it.
Senator?
Yeah, no, I recognize this before. I've seen these types of units put in on what you just described here. I guess the question is, and maybe your slides are gonna talk about it, are we gonna start wanting in businesses to start putting in oil grit separators too, if they're hooked up to the storm sewer to protect the storm sewers? I mean, where does it start and where does it stop sort of deal, right? Would be my question. Maybe you haven't thought about that one, but.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Your mic?
Oops, did I do it wrong? It feels like red. I should not talk. And white. Anyway, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I have to look through it. I don't believe there's anything currently in that draft bylaw that talks to oil grit separators. Of course, with new facilities that are being built, that is a requirement under stormwater management. So, but I don't think we have anything in the bylaw that kind of goes backwards, like we've talked about with rainwater leaders and grease traps.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Broad. I think when we did Lakeshore Drive, did we not put a couple of them oil grit separators in? So really, maybe that should be more of a municipal responsibility to do it on the main lines versus on the individual basis, right? Yeah, I think, okay, good.
Councillor Ward?
Mayor, I just had one other question. So going back to when we had our surcharge discussion about behind the plaza, we are doing work there. Could we just do that while we're there, do you think, or? So in the plazas is an issue. I'm just wondering if while we're there, it might be an economy of scale to just kind of manage that whole area with whatever is required. Because I would assume we're ripping that part up. I don't know. Someone.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad. The troubled areas are 100% the plazas. There is some residentials. I think the residential homes that just need to be educated. They're pouring grease down their laterals down their toilets or whatever they might be doing. And it gets in there, and sometimes we have some blockages or we got to flush. But the areas that we're seeing most of the surcharges are the plazas, and it is obviously a known area that the plazas aren't in great shape, and we are going to be addressing that. So to answer your question, like when we get new plastic lines in or the reline, it's also going to help out with the grease. And so to answer your question, it will be addressed if the plazas go through.
See you.
Yes, I can speak. So yeah, I think specifically you're looking at actually putting in something on the exterior of the buildings, if I'm hearing correctly, just to try and intercept. That's not included in the scope of work, which I'm sure you're not surprised on. Maybe it's something we can take away, and the three of us can talk about like what that might look like. Of course, then we come back to council and kind of share what that, if there's cost, how we want to deal with that. Am I understanding that's kind of where you want to go with that?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, that would be appreciated, because I just think if we're going to rip up the parking lot once, we might as well do it once in red instead of have these cuts in our new pavement, so.
So through you, Mayor Broad, you're asking for like potential grease traps outside? Is that what you're like outside of the buildings? Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, but how? would they be able to clean them from the outside exterior like that?
We'll take it,
Okay, and I think this is the last one, and it's a little bit more generic. So there were some schedules A, B, and C that were included in the report. Pretty high, pretty technical parameters, which I will be honest, like I rely on the experts to give me that information, and so we're kind of just passing that through to council. But if there's anything that they see, and it's interesting too, because again, like looking at other sewer use bylaws, there's some different parameters there. So you wonder like, okay, why is it this number versus that number? But, I'm going to trust the, who we engage to create the draft bylaw for us, that it is appropriate, and we'll double check to make sure those are good. But if there's anything that kind of stuck out like a sore thumb with council, I'd be happy to hear it, take that input and get some answers as to why a parameter is X versus Y.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 11B, KR, water billing for multi-residential dwellings units. CEO DeHaan.
Thank you. So this one will be a little bit quicker. Essentially where this came from is we have been seeing some interest and some development of multi-residential dwelling units within the municipality. We did receive some feedback from a recent developer that they found the way that the municipality structures the fee structure for multi-residential dwelling units, the annual fee, felt that it was a little bit different and perhaps a little bit onerous financially on the business because of how the bylaw is written, and was wondering if they were, if the municipality had looked at this in a while, had considered some alternatives just based on their experience in other places where they've developed. So we said, we're happy to take that back, bring it to council, and ask if there's any appetite to look at it. So what we've provided in the report is kind of how the municipality does it right now, and then some of our neighboring municipalities such as South Stormont, North Dundas, City of Ottawa, Edwardsburg Cardinal, how they treat it. And as you'll see there's some uniformity there, but there's also some differences in terms of how it's done. So I don't think there's essentially a right answer. It's just, are we happy with the way we do it right now, or does council want staff to kind of investigate different ways of doing it? So that's the purpose of this report, and I think we'll all be happy to get whatever direction council wants to take on this one.
Yeah, certainly I was with the CAO when some of these developers had these conversations with. I have an appetite to look at it. I don't know what the answer is, obviously. As we stood there, we talked, looked around at all different buildings and scenarios, and we're talking through. We still need revenue to run the water and wastewater for sure, but we also would, like to be fair in a way as well. We were thinking about, the multi-units, apartment buildings that, housing costs are so high, apartment costs, rentals are so high, we're just adding, substantial more, when they're maybe not getting more service. Anyways, I don't have all the answers yet or a direct opinion, but I have an appetite to look at it or get more info. I don't know if Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so I reviewed this, and I also think the same, like we're really trying to focus on affordable living, and apartments are usually the first step towards affordable living. And it is a big cost, and I'm not sure, depending on the size of the apartment, it could be fair. If it's a smaller apartment, maybe it's not, but if it's some of the apartments that are proposed are quite large, so they're almost the same size as a house. In other areas, which I think the CAO highlighted in his report, like it's usually based on meter size, and I think that would be interesting to explore. One thing, if it does come back in that manner, I'd like to see how it impacts revenue, just because I guess it's not really, we're not getting any revenue right now from the future apartments, but just to see if it, it really has a big impact to your capital or I'm not sure with that like how much that funds. Is that funding operations? I guess I should ask that question first. Sorry. So the 6,074 for the 10 units, does that fund operations or does that go to capital?
Through you, Mayor Broad, it does fund operations.
It funds operations. Okay. So maybe there could be some sort of, I'm amenable to looking at options. I just want to make sure we have the appropriate amount of money to operate, and that we're not being short-sighted on this one. So I would that'd be fine with me to bring it back.
If I may, like, I guess the way I see it, and I'll certainly trust our finance staff to slap me on the side of the head if I'm saying this wrong, but at the end of the day, what will end up happening is that, things get rebalanced, right? If we're kind of taking some of the, I guess, fixed fees here, we have a cost that it takes to operate this system. The users of that system pay for it, but it has to be rebalanced across all those users. So, yeah, to your point, I think if you're asking me, the meter size is a very simple, easy way. It keeps larger users equivalent when it comes, from commercial all the way down to apartments. So that seems to be, I would say, the more common way that I've seen when we looked across different rates. But but how does it impact? And I think that's good information. We'll be able to bring some more back, and how it impacts existing buildings that are currently being charged the way they're being charged.
Cool. Very good. Councilor Ward?
One follow-up question. So the rate study, you guys have to do a rate study through you, Mayor? Like, I don't know when the next one is. I just didn't, if it's next year, then maybe we look at it through that and then we can change it then. I just didn't want to.
Through you, Mayor Broad, there is nothing currently going on. I'm not sure when the next one is required, to be quite honest. The last one was, I believe, 3 years ago. Yeah, 2022, so 3 years ago. I'm not sure if it's every 5 years. I would have to look into that.
Okay, yeah, just if there's an economy, like if we're already reviewing the rates, maybe we could just do it at the same time, but if it's far away, then never mind.
Okay. Councilor Smith?
So I just was curious, so these big buildings that we're talking about, exactly what is with the current structure that we have, what exactly is going to be billed to who every month, if we keep it the same?
So the way it works right now, and again, I'll look to my colleagues here to correct me if I say it wrong. So the way it works right now is there's two arrangements that can happen in an apartment building. One arrangement could be that each unit has its own water meter. Then it's a very simple, like, water meter fixed fee and the consumption charge to the unit itself. But what is also commonly installed is that there's one water meter at the main feed into the building. So the fixed fee is charged to each unit, and then the water meter consumption is charged to the building owner. And then the building owner, whether they spread that out across the unit or it's just part of their calculation for rent, we don't know. Like that part of that relationship we're not aware of, or we don't get involved in. But we do ensure that each unit is charged that annual fixed fee.
All right, very good. Yeah, so I think direction is, let's go look at it and come back with some details for us to discuss. Okay, KR under 11C, Iroquois Locks, Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities, Director David Jansen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in front of you tonight is a report with regards to the Iroquois Locks. So staff are just looking for a little bit of direction on what council feels is a good next step for the municipality here. A few items that I won a little later on, and the first one here, the couple clarifications that I had. Our lovely deputy clerk did find the report from 2013, so I can confirm that the direction that we had in some of the previous reports was that this lease was mostly for the erection of the structures. So just to confirm that for council. Outside of that, you do see the letter that we, as the municipality, received from the Management Corp. And I know the CAO and I, in his early days there, did meet with them and had a very fruitful discussion and it kind of open discussion with them on some of the next options. From there, we're just looking for some direction from council on two options, two separate items included in the letter. The first one that's sort of outlined there is the lease. Staff are kind of looking at three different options coming forward here. So either we can continue with the lease and then maintain the grounds. We could consider renegotiating the lease. Obviously, we don't know how those negotiations would go, but definitely something we could consider, or we could just consider terminating the lease and moving forward from there. And then the other option, or the other item that was included in the letter was a little bit of Transport Canada deeming the land surplus. In our discussions, this was a little bit of news to us, and we did have some good discussion there. They did let us know that it would be a bit more of a lengthy process, so, you know, it's not something that we're going to see, you know, 6 months from now happen. I think they use the term many years, a few times in the discussions with them, so I don't think it's anything that we're, you know, going to have to jump out of our seats, but we definitely want to be concerned and aware of. So I did outline 2 options there with regards to steps the municipality could take. I will note while I was taking notes for tonight's meeting, I kind of added a third little hybrid option in my head, and I don't know if they would go forward with it, but possibly the option of maybe having a right of first refusal. I don't know if that's something that Transport Canada would be open to, but, you know, might serve the municipality, at least give us the opportunity to be involved in discussions going forward. Outside of that, I think in the report, the pros and cons and in all the options are fairly well outlined. And obviously, the land is a gem to the community, but also a very large asset as well. So just looking for a little bit of direction on those 2 items.
Yeah, thanks, Director. Yeah, I do know when the MP and I met with them, the former president, the last current staff, you know, they were considering making a surplus, and they did indicate like it's a long process, like many years, up to 10 years before those things kind of come to fruition. So we probably have a longer term outlook on that for sure. It could do some strategy planning and on that, on the short term. It's an important piece of tourism of South Dundas, and certainly the park gets used quite a bit. So I wouldn't want us to cancel the lease, but I think we need to figure out what we're going to do for the maintenance to oblige to the current lease we do have, and or, you know, have a new lease or some new options. I'd like us to think about that. Not sure what the team thinks at this point. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. And I don't know if we can go into these discussions if this got to be closed, but when you're saying renegotiate the lease, I was kind of hoping to get more information on exactly what you mean by renegotiate the lease. What would the terms look like? What you're thinking? So I just don't know if we can talk about that in open, or, yeah, you can, okay.
So yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, really there's only one clause that, you know, I struggled with the lease myself whenever I inherited it here. Under one line, it says the purpose, which was for the erection of structures. And then on like page 6, there's one little line about repairs and maintenance. And that was the line that, you know, maybe at the time it was the fine print. I don't have the history. I don't want to say anything too much there. But that's the line that they're coming back to us and saying, hey, would you guys take responsibility for the grass cutting and some things like that up there? And maybe we go back to them. They're doing the adjacent lands. They're maintaining the curbs already, which is sort of, you know, we had a good discussion with them, like, you know, you're going to end up with grass cutting lines, you know, because we only lease a portion of the property. And historically, they'd been cutting it already. So maybe they are open to renegotiations, but we don't really know. But it's really mostly would be about that one line.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm fine with renegotiating the lease to make sure it is, I can be quite frank with you, to the benefit of the municipality. And I liked your option of the first right of refusal. I'm not sure we want to inherit that land. I think we got enough facilities that we own, operate, maintain, which is continuously a challenge sometimes from year after year. But at least if there's an option of first right of refusal, at least a council of the day, when it does come to that, if it's 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, at least council of the day will have that opportunity to make that decision then.
Yeah, no, very good. Very good statements. Yeah, and I think on the longer term, the president and the former CEO, we had some thoughts as other government organizations that could own that versus the municipality. So yeah, I think those are discussions that will get played out for sure. Important, but do we want to take on another parking lot, more grass cutting? Not that we, maybe we do. Time will tell on that one for sure. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, so if I understood correct, that the original purpose of that lease in 2014, whatever it was for the purpose of.
Yeah, the Lions Club built the band shell, and then the cabana that's there, right? And
so if we don't if we don't maintain this lease or renegotiate it, then in theory, we lose that, or the Lions Club loses that, like all that money that was fundraised and all that stuff to back in 10
Yeah, I think
years ago.
what director's
I
bringing.
hate to give that
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I think what director, they're indicating now that in that line that says the maintenance, you know, like he said, let's not make assumptions. In the day, we probably thought about maintenance of those buildings. Now they're saying it's maintenance of the grass that it's on, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, we probably got to dig in deeper and,
Yeah.
and figure that piece out.
Yeah, because to Director Jansen's point, like, now we're gonna have, they're gonna have their contractors who mow their grass stop here, and then we're gonna start here and mow this 100 feet, and then it really is
Yeah,
kind
and
of
if they mow on
ridiculous.
Mondays and we mow on Fridays,
Yeah,
you know,
it's- Yeah, it's really kind of ridiculous, but, yeah.
yeah. I don't know if that's enough information, Director, at this point.
And yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's good direction. So if I wanted to summarize, I'd say the scribble on the right of first refusal, I think I see a lot of smiling heads around the table there. So we'll sort of send that in, you know, it's up to Transport Canada whether they want to give us that right. And we'll bring back the discussion if they say no, but if not, we'll go from there. And on the renegotiating the lease, we'll attempt to do that. And, you know, ultimately it's a renegotiation, so we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. And continuing, under D, Gallup Canal Marina.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this one's a follow-up from the November Committee of the Whole. During that Committee of the Whole, we did review 4 options with regards to the marina. A little bit of deja vu maybe from last month, but also a little reminder from last year. We did have a status quo, third-party operator, change in fee or level of service, and closure that we discussed, very eerily similar to the plaza whenever I wrote them out there. Obviously, the marina is a great asset to this St. Lawrence, like any village along the St. Lawrence, but it also has, you know, financial implications that we do have to review and make sure that we're doing our due diligence. So coming out of that Committee of the Whole, the direction that council gave was one, to talk to OPG and see if they were open to us having a third party. There is a no assignment clause in the lease, so I did meet with them this spring and they had no issues there. And then additionally, to collect some data from the opinion of the marina users currently, so we did send out a survey there. But ultimately, and following up from that discussion, we weren't really looking at staying at status quo. Obviously, it's got to be the right financial decision for the municipality, and I don't think closure was really on the table whenever we were having those discussions. So the way I'm looking at it is, we're down to 2 options. One of them is a third-party operator, but we don't even know if there is a third-party operator out there. So we're just taking an assumption that's even an option. So I'm kind of proposing that the next step be put out an expression of interest, see if there's somebody interested. Ultimately, it could come back that there's nobody interested, and then we could review the final option that's left on the table. But at this point, you know, we're reviewing those 2 options, so we'll take the next step forward, which I see as putting out an expression of interest and seeing if, you know, there's a model that we could bring in a third-party operator, something I know the municipality already does in other positions and has been beneficial to the community. So, that's all.
Yeah, I think you might get someone who submit an expression of interest, kind of have that feeling for the conversations. But yeah, that would be definitely a step. At least we would know what people might be thinking or other options out there. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'm thinking outside the box here a little bit, or maybe going back in time a little bit, but I'm wondering if there's another option here, David. And I know that for years there was a marina committee, but I'm wondering if there's an option maybe to create a board to run the marina, board of users to run the marina, similar to a committee, but a little bit more ramped up, that, you know, they have the asset to run, they know all the financial obligations, they know the capital costs, they know the operations cost, and I'm just wondering if that's an avenue that we could explore as well. Maybe that's the same as the third party, but maybe dissimilar to a third party. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here a little bit. I know I've been approached by a couple boaters who have expressed some interest in that, and I know that, again, I know we did that for a long time. I know it kind of dissolved after a while for reasons that we don't need to get back into, but I think we've all grown since that time, and I think there's some boaters that might be interested in forming a board, and I just don't know if that would be an avenue of which maybe we should explore as part of one of these options as well. We're not committing to anything tonight anyways, but I'm just wondering if that's an option that we could explore. And on the second thing, if I just may, I'm just wondering as well if this is the time. I mean, we've been doing a good job of engaging our stakeholders personally, We've engaged with the business groups on the plazas, one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but as a group with council there. We've had the stakeholders meeting with, regarding the development charges. Wondering now, after your survey's been completed, which is a good survey results, if we shouldn't be engaging in a stakeholders meeting as well to get the direct feedback from them, so we as a council can hear what maybe their thoughts are on third party, or their thoughts on maybe creating a board. So I'm just wondering out loud if that's an avenue that we should maybe explore. Just leave it as a third option.
I'm always thinking, let's explore all different options, but,
And so, through you, Mr. Mayor, and to that point, I would see no reason why a group of voters couldn't express their interest in the express. They wouldn't exclude them in any way. They could put their expression of interest in, and like Mr. Mayor said, like, hopefully, you know, in a perfect world, maybe we have 10 candidates and we get a good selection. But if we only have 1 or 2 candidates and they're one of the people expressing their interest, maybe that's an avenue that we explore at that same time. So I definitely wouldn't take that off the table, but I think that would give them the same open opportunity as everybody else.
Through you, so I guess my question is, can we be a little bit more transparent with them directly right now, and maybe get a stakeholders meeting and explore that option and see if that's something that they would want to create? I'm just thinking that a board would still be under the municipality versus just kind of a third party company running it, leasing it from us. So that's where I was kind of going with that. It's not really committee, it's kind of a next level up from a committee. So that's where I was kind of going with that. It'd be kind of a board that's created, but we'd still under the municipality's kind of, not direction, but kind of guidance, maybe is the lack of a better term, or under our standards, parameters, conditions.
Yeah, I through you, Mr. Mayor, let's take that back, because it was a very interesting thought, and I totally agree with Director Jansen in terms of, you know, why wouldn't they be able to respond to this expression of interest, and having that one-on-one engagements, that opportunity to say, like, you guys get together, provide us a proposal. We'd love to hear it. We'll look at it. And because an expression of interest, we're not necessarily binding ourselves to the low bidder, like a formal tender. We're binding ourselves to the best, you know, we're moving forward with the best opportunity for the municipality. So kind of coaching them into, like, if this is something you're really interested in, here's our EOI, you know, get yourselves together and respond back to us. And we can, yeah, I don't see why that's not a great, you know, kind of step in this process.
Councilor Ward?
Yes, that just brought up an interesting thought, and I was just, you know, reviewing like that financial part that was provided in the report about there is a deficit, and I think that's not the first time there's been a deficit at that marina. I just wanted to ask, if we go the expression of interest route and someone is successful, if there's any work done at that marina and then there becomes a lien on the property, like, is that ultimately going to become the debt of the municipality? Like, I just don't want to get into a position where we have an asset that right now we can't afford. It operates in a deficit, and, you know, through expression of interest, like, if somebody were to do improvements to the marina and then put a lien on the property, then again, we're stuck in the same boat. I just want to make sure there's some sort of protection in there, and there could be. I don't know the answer to that. I just, maybe we could look into that. You could bring it back later. I just want to make sure we're protecting the tax base as well.
Yeah, I mean, we would have the same scenario with the Iroquois Golf Course, potentially, so. Because that's a municipal property that we lease out, right? And we have specific contract on line items in that, so it'd be interesting to make sure. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Councilor Smith?
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to add was, if this does end up going to a third party, like just completely independent from the municipality, we just early last winter, granted free wall space to the search and marine vessel. And I'd like to make sure that stays in there, that they are able to get a free spot.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can write those things in those agreements for sure. Yep. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Director. And Councillor Smith, will move to your item 10A, Economic and Community Development Committee Recommendation Pop-Up Shops.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Brett. Just a quick question on that. So to Director Jansen, the pop-up shops, they've not been used at all in Morrisburg yet this year?
No, they have not.
They have, oh, sorry. What was the usage last year?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No.
So they were out of commission for quite a while they were being repainted. But the farmer's market today just sets up with their tables and their own tents, and it hasn't been attractive to rent the pop-up shops. So the ECDev committee was thinking, hey, let's get them all together in Iroquois with the Iroquois Business Group. They do a lot of activities and have been using them. So maybe that'll generate, because there's more of them, better picture opportunities, tourism opportunities. We thought, hey, let's get them together for at least this summer and then see how it goes.
Yeah, so the only thing that I was just thinking on this one was, there were some artists from Morrisburg who painted the
Yeah.
Morrisburg ones, and I just would like to have, not their approval, but just maybe we could at least ask them or say, this is what we're thinking about doing, instead of just up and moving them first, now, the reason I'm saying that is because, the ones that got painted by the Seaway students, the ones that are in Iroquois, and if they all of a sudden moved, I could see why they would be upset, because they're not looking at them now, they're in another town, so just before we move them, if the people who worked on those could maybe just get a heads up as to why and what we're doing first, that's all.
Yeah, well, we could do that. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay. Any notices of motions? Seeing none, I have a bylaw for the ratification. I have a motion that be bylaw 2550, a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed on open council, signed and sealed, moved by Councillor Smith. Sorry, Councillor Ward. Did the opposite this time. Seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And motion to adjourn at 7:36 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Okay, as we bring our meeting to a close for Wednesday, June the 11th, congratulations to our senior of the year for the municipality, Arla Cosman-Vino. Congratulations. It was great having her earlier tonight. And just the month of June, super busy month happening in South Dundas with Parks and Recreation, obviously opening of all the facilities and all the programming kicking off. I know the transportation department's super busy with all their roads work. Fire service has been busy. We've had a lot of calls recently. Treasury, water and wastewater, building had been all super busy, but certainly you can see a kickoff with South Dundas soccer full activities. So Saturdays or during the week, South Dundas ball hockey, Safeway Surge baseball, girls softball, lawn bowling, all the tourism activities. So lots more people into the communities, Upper Canada Village, the golf courses, the walks, etc. Bluegrass Festival this weekend. Obviously, our apartment buildings are starting to open, so the one in Iroquois starting to have people move in, so lots of activity. Construction, Valcraft, Merkley Oaks, roads are almost completed to the gravel top. Cement floor poured at Safavia, so incredible, a lot of things happening in South Dundas. So just wanted to note to all the staff that are all involved in all those activities, thank you for that, and thank you to all the volunteers out there that make all